Prologue, the rite of passage. The wind whispered ancient promises through the cherrywood beams of the ancestral hall. Cashin stood alone in the middle of the chamber, dressed not in robes of ceremony, but in the mundane uniform of his university, black slacks, scuffed shoes, and a charcoal-gray blazer. The call had come suddenly. A letter, sealed with the emblem of the hallowed serpent. No one used that seal anymore. Not since grandfather vanished. He held the parchment in trembling hands. It wasn't the words that made him uneasy, but what they meant. The rite of passage begins anew. As blood calls to blood, the trials await. Prepare thyself, heir. No signature. No address. Just the family crest pressed into wax. Cashin had always known his lineage was anything but ordinary. The Arkwrights were an ancient bloodline whispered about in magical circles and feared in forgotten dimensions. The family owned libraries that contained tomes no government could catalogue. Relics humming with latent power decorated their estate, locked behind layers of enchantments and vaults. But none of that had touched him, not until now. He was the last of the bloodline with no visible spark. Unawakened. Forgotten. Or so he thought. His mother, Adrienne Arkwright, had always shielded him from the family's darker legacies. A skilled charmancer in her prime, she had traded away much of her power to protect Cashin's childhood from the weight of their name. Still, even she couldn't stop the rite from claiming him. "You were never meant to be ordinary, Cass," she had said the night before the letter arrived, her hands on his shoulders, eyes shimmering with something between fear and pride. "The blood will call, and when it does, you must answer. Just, remember who you are." His uncle Alaric, the family's black sheep and a master of forbidden forging arts, had shown up the next morning. Drunk, defiant, and deeply aware of what Cashin was about to face. "They won't tell you the truth," Alaric growled, leaning against the old wine cabinet in the hall. "This rite isn't just some coming-of-age ceremony. It's a culling. The heirs don't return. They're scattered across the threads of reality, fighting to climb a ladder no one sees until they're at the top, and by then it's too late to climb back down." He had pressed something into Cashin's hand. A medallion carved from obsidian, etched with unfamiliar runes. "For when the rules stop making sense," he said before disappearing back into the shadows of the manor. The day of the ceremony, the estate bustled like a festival. Dozens of relatives, some Cashin hadn't seen in years, arrived in enchanted carriages or emerged from glyph-marked portals. The Hall of Names was adorned with floating candelabras and ancestral banners stitched with the names of those who had undergone the rite before. Yet despite the opulence, a solemn air blanketed the festivities. The ceremony was treated with reverence, but no one truly spoke of what came after. Whispers followed him wherever he went. "Do you think he'll return? Adrienne's boy looks nothing like a warlock. The last heir before him vanished in the third trial, didn't he?" Aunt Valora, the stern keeper of the family archives, presented him with a ceremonial cloak stitched in silver thread. "It's not armor, dear. It's tradition. Try not to bleed on it too soon." Cashin gave a faint smile. He didn't feel ready. But no one ever did. Now, standing alone in the ancestral hall, Cashin felt the past, his family's warnings, pride, regrets, crash down upon him. As he stepped deeper into the hall, the air shimmered like heat on pavement. The floor beneath his feet pulsed with invisible circles. Light, blue, sharp-edged, and filled with coded script, bloomed around him in a ring. Designation, Cashin Arkwright. The voice was mechanical, sexless, echoing from nowhere. Bloodline confirmed. Initiating rite. Destination, Trial World 1, Martial Mastery. Cashin's final breath in his world escaped as a whisper. Then the world fell away. And his trials began. Chapter 1, The Stone and the Sword. He landed hard, knees scraping stone, breath crushed from his lungs. The world smelled of iron and sweat. A gray sky loomed overhead, drizzling rain across a wide courtyard surrounded by jagged cliffs and fortress walls. Smoke rose from distant fires, and the clang of weapons echoed from within the compound. Before Cashin could stand, a boot pressed firmly onto his shoulder, forcing him down. "Oi, you all right?" a voice said, more curious than cruel. Cashin twisted to see a boy around his age, dressed in worn leather armor and clutching a short sword too large for his thin frame. Behind him, a training yard buzzed with young recruits, sparring, shouting, laughing. Ordinary lives being lived in extraordinary places. "Name?" the boy asked. "Cashin," he muttered. "Cashin Arkwright. You're one of the new ones, huh?" The boy smiled. "Figures. You lot always show up dazed. I'm Joran. You're in Bastion Hold now. Welcome to the academy." Cashin blinked. "Academy?" Joran nodded proudly. "The best military school in the Eastern Continent. We train to become Blade Wardens, protectors of the 5 kingdoms. Don't worry, they'll sort you out." To Cashin's astonishment, no one reacted to his sudden arrival. No magic lights. No guards dragging him to a higher authority. No mention of trials or heirs. To them, he was just another new recruit. The system of the right had inserted him seamlessly into this world, into a role that would allow him to grow without drawing attention. As he was led into a barracks and issued standard training gear, Cashin noticed something: his HUD. A faint blue light danced at the edge of his vision. Martial Mastery, Level 1, XP, 3 out of 100. He stared at it until it faded. They wouldn't know. None of them would know. To the people of this world, he was just another cadet. But he was here for something else entirely. "Cadet Arkwright," a sharp voice called. "You're late for orientation. Move it." Cashin straightened his back and followed the voice. He was here to fight. To survive. To grow stronger. And one day, to return. Orientation was held in a long stone hall lined with faded banners. A grizzled instructor with a metal arm droned on about formations, discipline, and rank expectations, but Cashin's attention drifted to the recruits around him. One in particular caught his eye, a tall girl with a shaved head and a face as pale as chalk. She sat rigidly, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Every word from the instructor seemed to confuse her further. When she finally caught Cashin watching, she leaned over and whispered, "You get dropped here too?" Cashin blinked, then nodded cautiously. "I'm Ela," she whispered. "One day I was picking herbs outside my village. Next thing I know, bam, I'm waking up in the mud out there." She rubbed a scraped elbow. No clue how or why. Just some weird dream voice saying I'm a candidate. "That happened to you?" Cashin hesitated. "Something like that." She narrowed her eyes but nodded, apparently satisfied with his vague answer. "Guess we're both stuck in this madness. Blade Wardens, huh? I can barely hold a knife." Cashin gave a dry chuckle. "You're not the only one." The instructor's gaze snapped their way, and both fell silent. But in that fleeting exchange, Cashin felt something familiar, another outsider. Maybe not like him, not from his world, but definitely not from around here. Whatever this place truly was, at least he wouldn't face it alone.